Are you making these 3 mistakes in your home inspections? Today on the Wellness Real Estate Podcast, episode number 18, we have Amanda Klecker, who is a building biology practitioner and a certified home inspector. She works with real estate agents and prospective buyers just about every day, and she sees which agents are really doing things to help their clients and some that are, let's just say, could be doing things a little bit better for themselves and the clients they represent. So if you're a newer agent or an agent who just wants to be sure you're not making mistakes during your home inspections, you're going to want to stay tuned because this is an episode you won't want to miss. Be sure to stick to the end where she explains her brand new program she's offering to agents as well. Okay, let's grow. Welcome to the Real Estate Marketing Podcast, where we explore a unique strategy no one is talking about that will enable you to engage more people with authentic conversations about your business more often. And it's called Wellness Real Estate. Not sure what that is or how it can help you as an agent? Well, that's what this podcast is all about. In fact, Wellness Real Estate is growing so rapidly that it is projected to be nearly $870 billion by 2027. I'm Sheila Alston, and I'm your host. I'm also the founder of Healthy Home Media, where I help agents all over the country leverage this new trend in the industry to spark new conversations that will get people to listen to you and notice your brand. So if you're tired of spinning your wheels without any leads or sales to show for it, then stay tuned. I guarantee this podcast is not like any you've heard before. Welcome to the Wellness Real Estate Podcast. Hey, Amanda, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to learn about home inspections.
Hi, Sheila. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So today we're going to talk about mistakes that agents can make in the home inspection process. So maybe you can just explain that a little bit further. I don't want to be making any mistakes.
I know none of us do. We all want to, do things in a way that is beneficial to our clients. Your clients are my clients, and I want to make sure that they're getting the home that is going to be best for them. And sometimes I think that can get a little blurry when you have clients who maybe are very emotional throughout the process and they're basing a lot of their decisions on emotions. One of the things that I see a lot of in the inspection industry as like a third person that comes in and gets to view this client realtor relationship is that sometimes the realtors feed on that emotion that their client has rather than kind of laying out the facts or really being logical about the decision and weighing out the costs versus what they really love about the house, costs of things that need to be repaired or fixed or brought up to code. And so sometimes what I see coming in is, I'll present this list of things as a home inspector that are red flags, safety issues, material defects, things like that. And sometimes the realtor will almost downplay it a little bit so that their client is still really in love with this space because either they don't, want to break their client's heart that maybe this isn't the right house for them, or they don't want to start back at square one, house hunting again and try to find something else. And so I think really looking at a house with like this lens of logic and kind of taking a lot of that emotion out of it so that we're not just buying a house because we love a part of it or we love the, exact location it is. I think that's really beneficial to a client in the long run. And sometimes I see that mistake being made when I'm at these home inspections.
Well, it's easy to make that mistake because especially if you've been looking for a long time for something and then you find something that checks most of the boxes and they love it. And then to hear about mold or hear about something, you're like, oh my God, that's an easy repair. But as a real estate agent, you're supposed to be their guide, not that you want to make something bigger than it is. Of course, everything can be fixed, but what you don't want is to downplay something and have it become a big issue after closing, and then they come back and sue you. So,
Exactly. One of the phrases that I heard at an inspection not long ago was a realtor said, we'll only pay attention to the things that you cannot change about a house. And if you like that, then it's perfect. And while that is a very good thought process, I think you can tell your clients that, but then also you have to say, yes, everything is changeable, but with a price tag and some time. And are you willing to put in that money? And are you willing to put in that time to change these things that perhaps should be changed or you'd like to change? And kind of weigh that with the things that aren't changeable, like the location and things like that.
Well, and it's also, I think it's really easy to get like in this mindset of like scarcity. This is the only home that's for me, and I've been looking for a long time and nothing. And if you actually believe that to be true, then you can get emotional about something. But if you believe that, if this doesn't work out, something better is going to be right around the corner. Don't worry about it. We're going to find something. And I feel like sometimes you need to just be that level-headed person to somebody so that they don't go down that emotional road of thinking that, this is the only property for them and what's going to happen if something, because then that's the kind of mindset that can make these issues bigger than they really need to be.
It really can. And I agree with you. And I think that a logic based realtor who can just really give facts, that is just such a benefit to the client. I mean, it's like a tool that they can like a resource that they can go back to and ask questions of, like, through the house hunting process. And I think when I see a realtor who is very logical and kind of lays it all out for their clients, I just think, like, what a great person that they have in their back pocket. And I always feel just confident that they're going to end up with the right house, either the one that I'm inspecting or one, that they might get in the future. But I know that scarcity mindset that it's there, and it's there right now. I know for like us in Minnesota, houses are flying and people just, they can't get a house. And so they'll be putting in offers on houses that maybe aren't perfect for them, or maybe even aren't that great of a house, but they're selling and they want one too. They've been looking for a long time, and they don't want to go through inspection after inspection after inspection. They just want to find the house that they want to move into.
Well, and sometimes realtors are waiving inspections in this seller's market. What are your thoughts about that?
I know. Okay. So mistake number 2. Yes, it is really unfortunate. That is happening a lot. I have worked with a lot of realtors who are encouraging like a mini inspection with an inspector at a showing. So we get half hour to 45 minutes and we will go through the house. We can't do a full inspection because those are usually a few hours, but we can go through, and if they've already viewed the house, they can visually see a lot of things that could just be red flags. I can come in and check the HVAC units. Sometimes I can even get up into the attic or on the roof, depending on how much time we have, or if there's if there's overlapping showings. And I can check the things that they wouldn't look at or know to look at. We can check the electrical system. And I've been doing this more and more over the past year because so many of these homes are selling without contingency. They're accepting offers that aren't contingent on an inspection, but there are buyers who don't feel comfortable doing that. And so this is a good bridge in that in between where I can have a professional look at it. And it's something that I would encourage all realtors to at least mention to their client that option is out there, because they might see something where you would just step away and say, you know what, this actually isn't going to be a good fit for me. I don't want to spend money, improving or fixing this. I've caught things where they just didn't see them at a walkthrough because that's not what they're trained to do, clients or realtors. And I get to dig deep into houses, and we can do a little bit of that and hit the really expensive things in a house, like the furnace, the roof, where as a realtor, you can just see it, but wouldn't necessarily like be on the roof looking at it. So.
Yes, exactly. Well, so what do you think about, I've known some good selling agents that actually encourage their sellers to do a home inspection so that it's visible. If they want non-contingent offers, just to say, here's the house. And then it kind of puts everybody's mind at ease because they can read the report and see if they're willing to buy the house.
I love that. I do seller's inspections, very few in the last year, because I think a lot of people who are selling kind of go, I don't need that because people just want my house. It was kind of used, I think, before almost as a way to market your house. Hey, I've had someone come and look at it and it's fine, so that they can sell it relatively quickly. I think it's such a useful and beneficial thing because yes, somebody has gone through it. And so it is that peace of mind and peace of mind for the seller too. I think, I've sold homes and I've kind of thought like, I hope I didn't miss something. I hope that everything is really okay for these people moving in, and so I think it's peace of mind all across the board. If you have
Well,
a
selling
third party.
101 is to overcome objections, right? So if one of their objections is, I don't feel at ease about the house, and you may have lots of buyers, a lot of buyers may not, if they don't have a construction background, or they're just not, they don't flip houses, or that this is their first home, they might be very wary of that. So think about how many more multiple offer situations you could get in just by having an inspection done and taking care of every house that has been lived in has little tiny things. So if you went through the list and just put in new smoke detectors and, and did the little stuff, caulked stuff,
Right. I know it gives you a really good list. I mean, and unfortunately it can be kind of tricky because a lot of times when we're doing a seller's inspection, their house is ripped apart because they're trying to get it ready to sell. And so there are all these things where they're saying, well, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to paint that, don't worry about this part because we're getting new carpet or whatnot because they're going to be selling. But I think what it does is when you think about the type of seller that's going to get an inspection in order to sell their house, that tells you how they took care of their house and how, they didn't cut corners because they're investing the money to get an inspection. They're wanting to be upfront and honest, with what's going on in their home.
Yeah. I mean, some people, you just paint right before they sell and it kind of covers up a lot of stuff.
I know. Yes, we see that a lot. And that is something I try to disclose to people. Like, it looks like a fresh coat of paint. So just remember, you're going to have to maintain this. It won't always look like that. So it is very common to see some of those like quick fixes done before, they sell, which it makes it look nice.
Actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So so the first mistake was, just maybe you phrase that in your words. It was making problems bigger than they are, or not.
Well, I almost think more downplaying. And really feeding into that emotional side of buying a home.
Yes, sorry, I got it backwards.
That's okay. Not to say that, you can't have any emotion, because you do fall in love with a house. I mean, there are things you envision your family there, fall in love with the neighborhood or a part of it. I mean, you're going to be living there, so you have to like it. But I do think it is, in the buying process, it is a huge investment. And so we really have to think logically as well. So I think if a realtor can really help kind of just make it a very, everything is very clear as far as what needs to be done, the price point range of those things. And sometimes you can ask inspectors and say, well, how much about do you think that type of repair would cost? And sometimes we know, and sometimes we give you a range, and sometimes we just refer you to someone else, but it's a start. So that would be mistake number one. I always think mistake number two is just not having a third party come in at all. And so if you find a house where a seller has had an inspection, that's amazing. If you don't want to make an offer contingent on an inspection, can you have an inspector come through and do just like a walkthrough inspection or a mini inspection? A lot of times they cost a lot less because we're not required to write a report, because they just want a verbal. They just want to know what's going on. So they're they're less expensive. Obviously, it's you're not getting as much information because we can't walk through the entire house or disturb a lot of things. but I think mistake number 2 is just not doing anything at all and just kind of trusting your gut, on a big investment. So
yeah. Okay. So what's the third mistake then?
So I think the third mistake is it's the opposite of number 1, and it's making a huge deal, or kind of almost being alarmist, with your clients about different things that need to be repaired. And I think what this really boils down to is if you're at the inspection. So a lot of times I go to inspections where either just the client comes or nobody comes, and they just want me to recap them at the end, or send them the report because they're out of town or whatever. And I think when you're not at the inspection, these things can seem a lot bigger than they are, because you're reading through this like long, I mean, you know how long inspection reports are. They're so long, and you're reading all these things and you're going, oh my gosh, this is like
there's like 6 pages wrong with my house.
And it's like, this is all wrong with the house. What am I going to do? And I think a realtor can really help their client in not necessarily downplaying, but how do I deal with, either an inspector who has been a little alarmist with my clients, or clients who maybe are first-time home buyers and really nervous about all of these things that they're going to have to learn and keep up with, things that they're going to have to repair that they don't know anything about. And I think having kind of like a knowledge base of, again, very logical, this is how much it costs. I mean, for example, I've been at inspections and said things like, well, the caulking along the back of the cabinet is deteriorated, so you would need to add more caulking to that. They had no idea that caulking is a $5 tube at the hardware store, and they can do it themselves in 15 minutes. They thought this was a huge project, and so they kind of panicked until we started talking about it. And I said, no, you can watch this YouTube video on how to do it, and just kind of giving them just some peace of mind that you'll be able to tackle all these things. And I think a realtor can really help with that. And again, just being very, very logical and walking them through the process of what it might entail. And a lot of realtors know these things because they've been in and out of houses and they've taken classes. And so they've gone to home inspections. They know that these are big or aren't big deals.
Well, and I do think that you probably will find more alarmist behavior from an inspector than an agent, maybe, because the agent wants the sale to happen, and they're gonna, but what do you do if the inspector you're working with is trying to cover their butt and not wanting to get sued? So they're making every little thing a big deal.
And I think, that is one of the things that I talk to realtors about all the time. This is a huge topic. Because sometimes it's nice if you have a working relationship with an inspector, or a few that you can then, give your client a list and say, hey, here's some inspectors that I've worked with in the past. They're very good. But sometimes clients want to get their own inspector, or they know someone. And then when they come in, yes, you're kind of dealing with, oh my gosh, how do I like backpedal this a little bit, because this isn't a big deal. I think I personally, and I'm the inspector, so I see this very differently. I think that it's probably more beneficial for a realtor to discuss it with a client after the fact, when you have the report, because I think while you're there, you can ask questions. And I think asking questions like, how difficult is that to repair? Or is this something that I can do myself? Or about how much do you think replacing this would cost? Or how many years do you think this appliance or the roof or whatever it may be, how many years do you think we have left in this good condition or this moderate condition? I think those are helpful questions because, again, a first-time homebuyer especially has no idea about these things. If they hear, material defect or red flag, they all of a sudden, kind of panic because they don't know what that means. I mean, in my reports, a missing smoke detector is a red flag. Well, that's $25 off of Amazon. And a lot of them, you don't even have to have them hardwired. You just have to have them there. So it's a very easy thing, but it looks scary in the report, and it might.
What? They're not up to code?
Exactly. Exactly. And so I think, asking the questions at the inspection, but then when you go through the report with the client, it's almost like the realtor could go through it first, kind of have like some mental notes or pick like the most expensive things and say, hey, this is kind of, what I think is going to be important here. I've even had realtors ask me before, what are your 3 big things or the 3 most expensive things that you see with this house? And I think that's kind of a helpful question because it just kind of breaks it down in their head where they're, because sometimes it can be all these little nitpicky things. And I always tell my clients, the little tiny nitpicky things that are like maintenance, that's like your to-do list when you move in. It's not necessarily something that you can't move in and deal with. You can move in with these little issues. It's just like a little to-do list every weekend, tackle a little bit of it. And so I think approaching it in that way is really helpful because like you said, I do agree with you. I think that realtors have to kind of maybe downplay a little bit what an inspector might.
If an inspector is being alarmist, I guess, in that situation.
Yes. And I think that's very common. And that is one of the things that I work with realtors on.
So is it because they don't want to get sued? Why wouldn't a home inspector want to be an alarmist like that?
Yeah, see, I'm just not that way. I'm a very logical, look, here are the big things, but these, I like to help them just understand. So I might not understand exactly why other inspectors are alarmists, but I do think it is to kind of cover themselves. I think there's kind of this mentality with home inspectors, and this is even like in a lot of the training sessions that I've been in, and it's kind of like clients will come after you and they'll be really upset if you get something wrong. And I don't think that's true. I personally feel like I have a great relationship with a lot of home buyers, and I think I leave there feeling like I helped them, and I hope they feel the same way. And so I don't treat my clients like they're just income to me. To me, they're really my clients, and I love helping them. And I think that not enough inspectors work that way. And it might just be that, if they work for a bigger company, then it is just a job.
Yeah.
And so maybe finding someone who is a little, understands how to work with someone on a more personal level. I think sometimes they can be alarmist too, because we have to know all of these things, and we have to know all these little bits and pieces about a house that could potentially be wrong. And so we just want to get all this information out. And I think sometimes it just comes out kind of like, hey, all these things are wrong. And and maybe it is too a little bit of like the inspector's taste. Maybe this isn't a house the inspector would buy. And so they're just kind of negative towards it, just not necessarily that it's a bad house. It's just not suited to the home inspector and their likes and needs. So
that is a good reason as a realtor, you want to just, build relationships with inspectors, not because you want the easy inspector, but you want to, have a relationship with someone and trust, that is going to be very logical, is going to just explain things as they are and, give you just facts and data, not bring in emotion with it.
Yeah. I think I think having a relationship with a home inspector is really helpful. I work with some amazing realtors here in Minnesota that I have gotten to know them. And I feel like I know their clients really well, and I know what questions they're going to ask me, and I know what is important to them. And sometimes we'll even have conversations beforehand where, they call me up and say, hey, this client that I'm going to refer you, or I'm going to give your name to, they're a first-time home buyer. They're nervous. Can you spend some extra time with them and just really explain things in the house? And I don't think that ever hurts to mention.
I feel like that might rarely happen too, right? Like, how does that happen all the time? That's such a good conversation to have, I think, just so that you understand the mindset of the buyer.
Yes, I personally have that conversation with, I would say, a lot of the realtors that I work with. But again, we have I have a relationship with the realtor. Now, if someone just contacts me because they, found my name on Google and I'm a nearby inspector, I don't usually have that conversation with the realtor. A lot of times I don't ever even meet the realtor. They don't come to the inspection. I feel like there's like two camps. It's like the realtor really walks you through that home inspection process. They're there with you for the whole inspection. They ask the questions that maybe the buyers aren't asking because they just don't know what to ask. And I love being on those inspections. It feels like the buyers being very well cared for. And it feels like they are really they're in good hands, as opposed to the opposite, where sometimes I get a call and it's a buyer, and their realtor said, hey, you just got to get a home inspection. And so they're off kind of on their own trying to figure it out. And I try to take good care of them and explain things to them as best, I know how. And I've had enough experience where I know the types of questions that, a realtor would typically ask. And so I will try to like preemptively answer those questions, but it is different when that realtor isn't there walking them through it.
Yeah. So if you do want to be a good realtor, a good guide for your clients, you want to show up to the home inspections.
100%. And if you have an inspector who doesn't want you to come because they want you to just be there like at the very end and not pester them, I don't like that. I tell people, if you want to be there for the full 3 hours, you're going to buy this house, you come for the full 3 hours, or however long it's going to be, because it's a good chance to be in the home, to be looking at things, asking those questions. I mean, you're paying an inspector and they are a wealth of knowledge. Why not just ask all those questions? And I think that kind of is when I talk about inspectors who it's maybe more just a job. Those are the inspectors I think that kind of, they don't want to be pestered while they're working. And I really don't. That's one of the things that I love about my job is I love answering questions. So
you love teaching. So
yes. If someone wants to come and follow me around, I welcome it.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you help realtors, because I know that you have a program specifically for that.
Yes. So specifically talking about a lot of these things. And I think one of the big things that comes up with the training that I am doing for realtors right now is how do we deal with alarmist inspectors and, that among other things. So right now I am doing a coaching program for realtors. I think it's really helpful for new realtors or realtors who are trying to understand or get better at this buying process in terms of understanding what to even kind of look for or screen a house for, if you will. So when you walk through with a client, you're going to start noticing the things that sometimes an inspector would notice. I mean, obviously you're not doing an inspection, but it's almost like a little mini screening, I feel like. And you could tell the client right up front before they're going to spend money on an inspector, hey, I noticed that, I don't know, the roof was looking a little iffy, or, hey, I noticed some cracks in the foundation in the basement. And it's not something you have to dig for, move furniture for. They're just things that you're going to start noticing like an inspector would notice. So that part of, the buying process all the way through helping them understand a home inspection, helping them prepare for a home inspection, the questions that you can ask as you're on the inspection with them, how to deal with home inspectors. I mean, I say this with, I'm a home inspector. A lot of home inspectors are men, and sometimes they can come across in a different way, or they can explain things in a different way. And so I think knowing the questions to ask, knowing the questions to ask to not downplay a problem, but bring the logic into it as far as cost goes, how much work is really going to be involved, how much time is left in what they have. So when are they going to need to replace this or fix it or call someone in? Those questions to ask, and then helping your client go through an inspection report and how you can go through an inspection report first, so that when you're talking with your client, either about points that perhaps you could negotiate or a to-do list for them in the future and what that looks like, you're helping them and kind of taking the scary part out of it because we're talking through it. And so that's this training that I am working with realtors on. It's a month-long coaching program. You get, there's 4 Zoom calls that we do together where we go through these types of materials that are already, there. You can print them out and go through the contents yourself, and then we can come back for questions. You also have access to me as an inspector for whatever's happening in real time. So if you have a question or a client has a question, I am available by text or phone or email during this coaching process. And we, get to go through, like I said, that buying process, knowing what to look for. We talk a lot about old homes and some of the red flags that we see in old homes. Some realtors have had more questions about some of the environmental concerns that we see in homes as far as like toxins go, mold, lead, asbestos, and kind of looking at those for their clients as well if they work in an area that has a lot of older homes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do think that, there's 2 camps of buyers. So the people who want a move-in ready home and don't want to do anything. And then there's the people who want a fixer and open to those things. So depending on who you have,
exactly,
changes their mindset on when they see some of these things that come up. These people will be like, oh, that's not an issue, no problem. And another way I was thinking, another person that realtors should have in their tool belt is just a handyman. Because
100%.
There's a bunch of little stuff and it's easy to caulk things, but the buyer still does not want to do it. Yep. It's so much easier if you can say, hey, I've got a handyman. And, as part of your closing gift or something, I can just have them come for a day. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be an incredible closing gift. Yes.
Yeah, because and if it's just a day's worth of work, it may not even cost you very much. Or even if you didn't throw it in, you could just say it's going to be a day or 2, or, I can call him and give him the list and he'll give you how many days it's going to be. And that's going to cost X amount for you. And then that kind of just still can put them at ease, knowing that, okay, it's only $500 to take care of all these little things,
Right. Yeah. Yes. And I think it's funny. So this is a question that I've gotten multiple times. Do you know a good handyman? Who would you refer? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in my report, I use a software that is fairly common. It's not one of the most common. So this may not be in all reports that you see, but my report will break things down into who you need to call to fix it. So, and I would say, oh gosh, 85% of what is in that report is either DIY or handyman, or DIY / handyman, depending on how handy you are. Yeah. But it is just these install a smoke detector, caulking, things like that, where it's we don't need someone who's necessarily, a licensed plumber or something to fix that. So that would be an amazing gift as a for a client.
Right. Or a house cleaner too. I just had a closing, and
depending on what type of house. Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. Well, just everybody wants to feel like they're buying a new house, they're moving into a new house. So wouldn't it be an amazing gift to just get the house professionally cleaned right before they move in?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not we write that in our what am I trying to say, in the contract? Yes. We write that in the contract that we want the seller to have it professionally cleaned before they leave. But you never know if it's going to actually be done good.
I mean, I've sold houses before, and I've been cleaning as we're leaving on our way to the closing, trying to get it as clean as possible.
Right.
But
oh my gosh. Okay. Well, so Amanda, thank you so much. How do people get access to your coaching program? How do they learn more?
Yes. So on my website, you can go to my services, and at the bottom it says Realtor Coaching Services. And so that's where you would go. It has all the information, how you can sign up. I have a limited number of spots every month because I really like to be 100% involved and helpful. And it's one-on-one. So
okay. Well, and it's Healthy House on the Block.
Yes, sorry, healthyhouseontheblock.com.
Yes.
And under my services, yes, that is where you would head.
Well, and I also love that you just have so much information and
for homeowners too on your site. So
Yes.
even just you're such a valuable resource to have for any agent, because you can go there and forward some of your blog posts and things to clients. And
Absolutely.
Amanda is also an amazing writer for my magazine Wellness RE every month. So, and I so appreciate your articles. They're always so good.
Oh, I love
and
it.
helpful. Okay, well, thank you so much, Amanda. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will put the link to your website in in the post or down below here. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sheila.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something new that will inspire you to think about your branding and how you can market yourself a little differently. If you enjoyed this episode, then you're going to love what I have for you, because you don't need to wait to go get extra certifications or to grow and expand your network to get started attracting those new leads right now. You can simply begin by talking about wellness real estate trends and what you've learned on this podcast with others. I mean, this is pretty interesting stuff that no one has heard about, and I have all the tools that can make it even easier for you. Wellness Real Estate Magazine is a brand new wellness lifestyle magazine, and it's the only magazine that brings health and home together. We educate readers on industry trends and how to create a healthier home environment, written by industry experts around the country. And we have 3 covers to choose from: Wellness RE, Healthy Home, and Wellness at Home, so you can easily find one that aligns with your unique brand and messaging. These magazines are the perfect done-for-you tools that help you not only stay top of mind, but they educate and engage your audience, which positions you as an industry expert. Differentiate yourself and grow your brand the easy way. Learn more at healthyhomemedia.com.